Hello, it's Sammy here, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Manchester football correspondent at The Guardian and author Jamie Jackson. Firstly, Jamie, thank you for coming onto the channel.
Thank you very much for asking me. I'm looking forward to it, Sammy.
Well, you're a journalist, and of course, during this time, you haven't been able to go to games. You haven't been able to, do your normal routine of going to press conferences, asking managers questions, reporting on the games, covering the games. So, how have you adapted your work to, staying at home and focusing on something else that's not just like the normal routine?
Yeah, so you're right to ask that question because obviously what you talk about there, the matches, the cycle, the press conferences before and after, speaking to managers, players, contacts, all that's gone now, obviously, because we're at home. So what's replaced that really is in-depth features. So, for example, I did one a couple of weeks ago about a sort of famous game between Manchester United and Real Madrid in 2003. The Brazilian Ronaldo scored a hat-trick. It was at Old Trafford. He got applauded off. It's quite a famous sort of game. So I spoke to players. I spoke to Mike Phelan, who's the assistant manager at Manchester United, because he was also the assistant then under Sir Alex Ferguson. So it's that sort of stuff. In terms of news, there was always news beforehand, pre-COVID, which was transfer-related stuff, managers under threat, injuries, whatever it might be. Obviously, that's, most of that's gone now, but that's been replaced by kind of news about when's the Premier League going to restart, safety issues. So there's still news, and obviously transfers are still an issue. Have they got any? Are they going to have any money now? That sort of thing. So at the moment, that's kind of where we're at with it. We've been going now 2.5 months. I've kind of lost track. Yeah. I happened to go to the very last game on sort of last evening of I think major football in Europe, which was the United game against Lask in Austria on the Thursday. That was behind closed doors, and that was I think early March. And where are we now? We're sort of middle of May, are we? Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's kind of what the Guardian, the Observer, and most news organisations have been doing, in terms of sports.
And for you, how have you missed games and going to games and covering games? Because I know you're not a Man United fan, but you're a football fan and you love going to the games and covering the games.
Yeah, I've missed it unbelievably. I mean, it's interesting because in my sort of working life as a sports journalist, which has been going 18 years. So before I had this job covering United and City, which was in 2012, I started it. I was a general sports person who did Olympics, World Boxing, title fights, you name it. First 2020 World Cup in South Africa. So this is the first kind of pause, if you like, even though I am still working, from the live stuff. And you just realise how, sort of looking back a little bit, thinking, crumbs, look at all the great stuff I've been lucky enough to cover. So yeah, I am missing it. I've got a son who loves cricket. The first live sport we could find in the world was there's a I think it's a T10 cricket league in Taiwan, Taipei, which I can watch on an app called Sports Tiger, I think it is, or Tiger Sports. So I've been watching a bit of that, and then the South Korean league started up last Friday. I was watching that. So yeah, I've missed it. I'm sure I'm like anyone else, whoever they are, whatever they do, live sport. And it was interesting watching that game last week in the South Korea league, because it's like crumbs. I haven't seen anyone pass a ball to each other for ages, or just the normal things that are normal that you take for granted. So yeah, I am really missing it. And yeah, it's obviously a very difficult time for everyone, really.
And just to touch on something you talked about just previously, it was about how you went to the Man United LASK game out in Austria, which was behind closed doors.
Yes.
And obviously there are talks about football coming behind closed doors. What was it going out there? Because what was there, about 300 people there?
Good, yeah. I mean, there was some United fans who travelled all that way, knew they weren't going to get in. In terms of the actual number, I'm not too sure, but there was a smallish media corps, which I was one, obviously. And then there were a few fans. So yeah, that's probably quite a good guess. I mean, the atmosphere is kind of how you would guess it to be. It feels a little bit strange. I was going to say it's like a pre-season friendly. It's if Manchester United get 60, 70,000 pre-season friendlies. So yeah, I mean, it takes a bit of getting used to. But if you ask me a slightly different question, would I, or most people, prefer that than nothing? As long as it's safe, of course, that's the most important thing. Got to stress that. Then I think yes, you would prefer that. But it was an interesting experience. You could hear the players. Yeah. You could sort of. I did a little piece actually the following day, kind of who you could hear, what it was like, kind of what we're talking about. It was interesting. Fernandes was very loud, as you might expect. Bruno Fernandes. Maguire wasn't so loud, although he was vocal considering he's the captain. Romero, who was the sort of standing keeper, he was very loud. So just little things like that. And I noticed that on the TV, the South Korea game, Korean League, sorry, how loud it was. So I think that will be a feature if it does restart of the games. Kind of, you can sort of hear what the managers are saying. So that'll be quite interesting in a way.
Yeah, and just talking about yourself, you've got a book coming out this August, which is available to pre-order. The link will be in the description below, which will be about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Yes.
When going about writing that book, what did you do for writing the book? Because you're obviously there for press conferences, you've spoken to him, asked him questions, but did you also go out to other people around the club and ask them things about him?
Yeah, so basically it's a biography. So it's sort of from when he was born, if you like, until now, his life. So it's not just Manchester United, but, obviously it's a massive part of the story because obviously what he did as a player there and now as a manager. But yeah, I mean, I've spoken to, I kind of lost count at about 40 people about him. Childhood friends, school friends, first coaches, teammates when he was making it, players at United when he went there, coaches when he was there, then moving on to sort of other people in Norway where he's from. I spoke, for example, to the sort of mayor of his hometown, get a sense of what he really means to, where he's from, which is a place called Kristiansund. Then players, people at Cardiff where he managed, basically for each important part of his life, not just sporting life, but life. I've hopefully spoken to 2 or 3 people just to give a bit of a sense of who he was. And, it was an interesting process. So I basically started the process, let's say, February of last year. And I'm just now looking at proofs, which is basically the last chance you get to look at the book before it goes off to the printer. Excuse me. It's about 85,000, 90,000 words long. I'm quite experienced of writing books. I mean, I've written one previous United book that was out called A Season in the Red. Yeah. I've also written a few novels. I don't know if you know. I've got a novel out at the moment under my other name, Jamie Paradise, called Nighttime Kill. So, but this was interesting. So a biography, I'd never done a biography before. And what I didn't quite understand at the time setting off, and maybe it's obvious to some people, maybe it's not, because I've read a lot of biographies, but you actually you're still telling a particular story. So you're not just saying, then he did this, and then he did this, and this was important to him. You start to develop a sense of who he is, how he is, and kind of the person behind what we all sort of see on TV or press conferences. In my case, face to face, and so you start to develop a story of his life. Now, if you did the book, or Joe Bloggs on the street did the book, whoever, that you might have a different kind of slant or take, and that's what I find really interesting. So hopefully when people read it, it's got a bit of style the way it's written, but most importantly, there's stuff in there that people don't know about him, because that's kind of what you're interested in, isn't it? Really, who is this guy? Because he's had an interesting life, and obviously an interesting sporting career, and for him to go into Manchester United and try and turn it around after the Ferguson unbelievable success and then the kind of disappointment, of Moyes and Van Gaal and Mourinho. I mean, I know the last 2 there won trophies for him, which is great, but they haven't come really close to looking at the league properly. It's a big deal, and so it's been interesting. He knew I was doing it because I told him as a courtesy. He gave me his blessing, which was very kind of me, because what that meant was that when I would speak to a lot of his friends or teammates, often the first question is, does Ole know? And I could sort of say yes, yeah. So therefore, they're more likely to speak to you. So yeah, I mean, I'm lucky enough to have covered United basically since the Mancini season when City won it under him. So that's 2012, as I said, yeah. So I've been there basically for that season, the last Ferguson season, and everything else. So that obviously helps. And to a certain extent, that's kind of why. See, I've got an agent who is for my fiction, but he suggested this would be a good idea because of the obvious reasons. It's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. There's never been one, not a proper comprehensive biography. And I have to be honest, I wasn't overly excited about doing it just because I'm so keen on writing fiction stories. But when I started to think about it, I started to think, wait a minute, this would be really interesting. It has been. It's been a great experience. I've come out the other end. I'm not saying I'm an expert in writing biographies, of course not. But, it's like anything. I've been through the whole process now, and I've really, really enjoyed it. So I would do another, maybe not about a sporting figure, but I would certainly consider doing another one. I've got a great publisher, Simon & Schuster, one of the best ones in the world. Very lucky, great editors there. And now when you see the proofs, as I mentioned, you can sort of see the way it's going to actually look on the page rather than being a Word document. It is a particularly exciting part of the process. So that's kind of how it's all worked, really.
And when you were talking to childhood friends, people that have been close to him, were you expecting a certain answer or a certain response when they were talking about Ole?
That's a good question. Kind of yes, kind of no. Sometimes people would surprise you. Obviously, he is a consistent kind of character. So what I mean is, he's not someone who sort of is up and down temperamentally. So you ask about certain parts of, say, how he went about his career at United, taking it seriously. So a certain. And that's kind of why you speak to a few people, because if enough people sort of say the same kind of thing, you obviously know it's correct, really. So I won't say there's any major surprise in terms of him, but there's a few interesting things about his mindset. He was very, very, very switched on from a young age about his career, which might sound an obvious thing, but a lot of these players who are very good, they're very good, and they're young, obviously, they're young kids when they start out. They don't necessarily understand the need to practice and to be sort of kind of professional, even when you're not at the training ground. And he was very much like that. And I think that's kind of one of the things that has helped him, well, obviously, get to where he is now. But he's from Norway. How can I say this? He hasn't got a massive tradition of managers generally in our domestic league, not in the top one. I mean, there was the guy at Wimbledon. I can't remember his name now. Forgive me. And there might have been one or two others. But what I'm saying is, for him to it's quite a big deal there. He in Norway is kind of the most famous person there. And culturally they've had some interesting figures. I think Ibsen, very important playwright, is Norwegian, for example. So he is kind of what you think when you sort of see him on TV. He is like that. He's and you don't need to write a biography to sort of know this. If you sit through enough press conferences, he is generally all the time. When it was going very bad for him at United, and there's been a few times like that. Yeah, listen, he wasn't happy, but he was always polite and courteous and showed a bit of class that way. And that's kind of been reflected in the way he's gone about his life and the people he's sort of, he's worked with and sort of been affected by him.
And just going away from the biography, you also talked about fiction, and you've written a couple of your own novels. How does that compare writing something about Manchester United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to writing completely different, just pure fiction?
I've got to say, for me, the magic is writing fiction, the real magic, just because it's all your imagination, and to be able to get that, to do justice to sort of the ideas you have. You're making up characters, you're making up complete, new people who don't exist, obviously. You're making up stories that are just made up, and to somehow get that down into a sort of story that people like and want to read, I think is a particular kind of magic. Because when I was growing up, and still now actually, I mean all through my life, but when I first started reading fiction, books, storybooks, whatever you want to call them, I was just like lost in them. I just find them so interesting and so just like magic. And I got a bit older and I still found them the same way. But then I started to think, crumbs, how is this writer doing this? How is she or he creating this world which all makes sense? It's all believable on whatever terms it wants to make believable. All these characters are really interesting. And there's a kind of magic there. And so then, I sort of started writing fiction when I was about 23. So I'm now 48. So it's been 25 years. And I would say for 20 years of those, I seriously struggled. I kept going. I've written, I don't know, it's got to be double figures novels which weren't any good. Yeah. But you have to, everyone's different, of course, but you have to go, that's your practice. So I say they're not any good, but they're really important for learning. And then it just clicked about 5 years ago. And I have to say that was just an amazing feeling. And so I just love doing it. I mean, since 2016, I've written 6 novels, and I'm now on a 7th now. I'm about 30,000 words through this. They're usually about 80,000. So I'm looking already. I can see I'm nearly halfway through. And it's just, I suppose it's like anyone who wants to do something and they sort of become quite good at it. It becomes a little bit easier then because you can do it, and it's just about how much better you can be. So yeah, I mean, listen, I love doing the biography, as I said to you, but if I had to choose, a type of writing, it would be fiction easily. I've got to be honest.
And when you're talking about just writing fiction, is it something that just comes a little bit more naturally to you?
Yeah. What I always say about it, Sammy, is it's not necessarily easy, but it comes
Mm-hmm.
natural to me, if that makes sense. So it's still tough, writing a novel. I mean, not as tough as it used to be when I used to wrote utter sort of embarrassing stuff. But so now what's tough is, right, I've got these ideas. I know I've done it before. I've know I've had a book published and people seem to like it. So I know I can do it, but I don't want to not do these ideas justice because it's exciting. So, but yeah, it does. Listen, I find writing features for The Guardian, writing this biography natural. I think writing to me comes quite natural, but I've worked hard at it. This is one thing that's very important. So I was talking to my son about this. I've got a son who's 8. He's into cricket. He's into all the things that sort of, a lot of young people are. And I was saying to him, it's interesting because often you'll hear about, say, a footballer or a sportsman or anyone. Oh, he wasn't particularly talented, but he's very hard working. And what I was saying to my son, just in my opinion, I actually think the best talent you can have is to be a hard worker, because what that means then is you're going to get the most out of your potential. And that's kind of, and so to go back to your sort of question, in terms of, yeah, it's more natural, it's more fun to do fiction, but I do really enjoy writing feature. I enjoy writing this biography. I just love writing, really. Yeah, I don't know if you yourself want to go into the writing as well as the broadcasting, but this inkling that you might want to do, I would say go for it because it's fun. And the best things are fun, aren't they? If you enjoy doing something, then it's not really work, is it?
And just going back to what you were writing about Manchester United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and you talked about season in the red. When you were writing about Ole, was there just certain things that you thought that he's the right man to take United forward?
It's a very good question. Yeah. I mean, listen, I think he's got a heck of a chance of. Yeah, I think he got right. So he's got the history at the club, obviously scoring the goal, that won them the final, 99, and all that might mean nothing if he didn't have. He's an intelligent bloke, right? Which I think really, really counts in anything. The other thing he's got is he kind of. The reason why I mentioned that history is he does love Manchester United. Now, I think that's quite important. I think he gets the club. I'll tell you one thing where I thought, crumbs, he might have a chance. I've got to be honest, when he was appointed caretaker manager, I was like, wow, apart from anything else, he's still at Mulder. It's sort of almost like not a job share, but. And the very first press conference he did, as caretaker manager, which was like back end or 18th or 9th of December of last 2019, I'll get this right, 2018. Yeah, anyway, it's very, and he came in and I thought, he's bound to be nervous. Who wouldn't be? I would be, blah, 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 blah. He just sat there and he just didn't, maybe he was nervous, but he just sat there. And it wasn't just that he was relaxed. He was enjoying it. And some of the stuff he was saying, I was thinking, this guy's actually, that's interesting. He actually, I thought it might be. So David Moyes is a good example. This is, you mentioned season in red, but it's obviously about the managers after Ferguson, all the way up to when Mourinho comes in 2016. Moyes, he always was a little bit overawed by it, a little bit sort of too. Oh wow, this is great. Aren't I lucky, sort of thing, which is fine as long as you quickly, Van Gaal, Mourinho, of course, not like that because the seasoned guy, but this guy comes in, Solskjaer, and it's just like, I'm gonna. I belong here because he does know everyone there because he was the reserve team manager until 2010 before he went to Mulder. So, and a lot of those players are now in the first team squad. Not all of them, people like Pogba, Lingard. I think even Rashford maybe, although he's a bit younger, might have been coming through. So, and some of the same for them. Yeah, I mean, I do think he's got a very good chance. And what I like is he's got a plan. The players he signed last summer, which were Daniel James, Maguire, and Wan-Bissaka, you could see why he was getting them. They're good signings considering they weren't in the Champions League, and he's supposedly Solskjaer, who some people think isn't right for the job. So he's done that, and then he's had a really rotten time at times this season. But United actually gave him some time. He started to come out of that, and Fernandes comes, and it's only one player, but he's almost. he's the sort of player you need in a team like that. You need a player like that who's a leader, but who also makes the other ones a bit better as well. So yeah, I think he's got the best chance of any of them since Ferguson. And but this is the beauty of sport. I could say this, and season restarts or football restarts whenever, and he loses 10 and he'll be out the door. I'm not saying that will happen, but I do think he has a proper chance.
And when Solskjaer came in, it almost coincided with United going into a different direction and had a different vision in terms of getting these young players in, spending more money on maybe the academy and investing in young talent. Do you think that was a decision that came from the board down and they thought this is what we need to do now because it's not been working with Van Gaal, Mourinho, and Moyes?
Yeah. I think it was. I think, and that's kind of why I think he has got a chance, because I don't think at the time you thought, like I just said, it's caretaker. They're a little bit desperate here, but I actually think they thought, wait a minute, right? Who do we want next? Which direction do we want to go in? We've tried the sort of, not the Fergie light, but in David Moyes, the guy who Ferguson recommended. We've tried the sort of the old kind of master in Van Gaal. Yeah, we've tried the sort of supposedly the best of his generation, or one of them anyway. Certainly one of them, if not the best, in Mourinho, and that's not worked. Why don't we just actually go back to, or not go back, but why don't we actually try, someone who's been here, is a manager, is young, but also he's the most. How can I say this? I think he's the manager the players have liked the most. He's a good manager, and he's the manager the club has liked the most internally. Very popular, and I think under Mourinho, it was divisive. I think he really, it doesn't really matter whose fault it is. The point is, there's a lot of people there disenchanted with, there's certain press conferences he just talked for 2 or 3 minutes, and the club didn't think that was a good look because it's Manchester United. I don't know who you support, and as you mentioned, I don't support them, but they are Manchester United. They're a massive, proper football club, and they have a certain, they'd like to think they have a certain class. And I'm not saying Mourinho didn't have any class, but it just wasn't a good fit. Whereas this guy Solskjaer, does have all that. And so yeah, I think this is the direction. So even if it doesn't work with Solskjaer, I think it might do. I think this is kind of, and I think it is a good template. I think they know they made mistakes with Moyes. They've admitted it. In terms of they didn't get anyone in apart from Fellaini his only summer. They didn't. They kind of learned. It's taken 5 or 6 years. So let's wait and see. But I think this Fernandes thing is interesting because that's probably the best player they've signed. I mean, Pogba's a cracking footballer. So you've got Pogba and you've got Fernandes. They're the 2 best players. But in 7 years, is it? 7 years since Ferguson left, and you're Manchester United, just having 2 really good players you've signed is pretty awful, I'd say. Look at City. City, David Silva's leaving. You've got Bernardo Silva who'll take over. You've got De Bruyne leading that team. They've got brilliant players everywhere you look. United have been a bit duff when it comes to recruitment.
And one thing you mentioned was how City have almost like world-class players in every position.
Yeah.
And United, maybe 1 or 2 outfield players that are world-class.
Yeah.
When Solskjaer, implemented his style, his vision on the club, what do you think he needs to do in terms of signings? What do you think is it? Because maybe it's not 6 or 7 signings he needs, or maybe just 2 or 3 really, really good.
I think you're completely right. I think you're completely right. I mean, he needs what he needs is he needs a 20. I'm not saying this isn't already at the club, but he needs a guy who's going to score him 20 plus in the league. That might be Rashford, right? So that might already there, but he needs another guy. So at City, you've got Aguero who gets 22, 23, 24. Then you've got Raheem Sterling who gets 18, 19. It's an obvious thing to say, but they've lacked goals, really seriously. So he probably needs another striker, a ready-built striker who can come in and score all those goals. Or if not, maybe Fernandes. So in terms of signing, if you're asking me, I would go for a proper, I'm not saying you can get them, but a proper world-class centre-forward. Rashford is a world-class forward, but he needs support. Martial, for me, if you're lucky, you're going to get 15 in the league. That's good, don't get me wrong, but it's not quite good enough for United. So I think that's an area. I think they need probably another. I mean, I was going to say like a sort of another kind of wideish player. This is why they're looking at Sancho. But for me, I think Sancho's the wrong signing for where they are. Not because he's not a great player, but I think they're more desperate in that area, an out-and-out centre forward. And then I think they probably need another midfielder, like another sort of genius midfielder, if I can call it. Now, which is interesting because if Pogba stays, this thing with Pogba, I love him as a player, but it just hasn't worked at United in terms of being happy. Still been their best player, basically, whenever he's turned up. I don't mean that disparagingly, but I mean whenever he's been in the team and, he's available. I think they probably need, they need another one. Because look at, as I say, City, for me, they just stockpile them. And then they probably, if you look at the back of the team, I don't know, do they need another centre back? Because beyond Lindelof and Maguire, who look good, I don't know, Bayer's always injured. Jones is sort of not in the squad, or he's struggling to be a sub. So I think, it's probably for me a guy. It doesn't have to be a centre forward actually, but it has to be a guy who'll score, 20 league goals. Comes with Harry Kane is an interesting option for him, yeah, because I think he would go there. They're now saying United that they haven't got the money because no one really, because of what's happening on, no one really knows what money they'll have. But I still think at some point they might be able to get him. So you look at a centre forward or a guy who's sort of 22 goals in the league, not overall in the league. And I would say another genius centre midfielder. That's what I mean by genius. A guy like Fernandes who just looks anyway at the moment like he's top class. Then I would look at another centre back, and then after that you can argue about do they need a full back because Luke Shaw's a bit in and out. Brandon Williams only quite young. Diogo Dalot can play both flanks, but I'm not sure Solskjaer fancies him. But I think you're looking at a striker and a central midfielder really the priorities.
And one thing you mentioned was how you thought that United said that United need a proper out-and-out centre-forward, and what it looks like they're going to be going for Jadon Sancho, who's going to play on that right-hand side. A lot of United fans have been saying that the balance on the right-hand side with Wan-Bissaka and Sancho could pose that real threat, and with Martial, Rashford and Sancho and Greenwood coming in, that could pose like a front three for many years.
See, Greenwood's an interesting case there because, he looks... Solskjaer rates him as he's said it a couple of times, the best finisher there, so better than Rashford and Martial, whoever else you want to throw in. He's a bit young. But, yeah, listen, that Sancho thing sounds great to me. If you've got the other... My issue with Sancho, right, is not an issue. It sounds like I don't think he should go. No, I think he should. But at the moment, he's never done it in the Premier League. And so if they really want to try and get back up there, get him. But if you can get, I'm not saying you can get him. Someone like Lewandowski is just someone who's going to absolutely just know he's going to come in and absolutely batter the league for him, Because I think that's what they need just to make. Because that's kind of what Fernandes did. I know it's only 9 games, but he sort of came in. It wasn't just like, oh, he looks decent. Maybe not. It's like, wait a minute. They've got a sort of superstar in the making here. And I think that's what they need to do a little bit more of. United, who is the best player, beyond Messi and Ronaldo in the world? Let's have a go at getting him. We might not get him, but it sort of shows intent. So, yeah, Sancho would be brilliant, but I'm not sure he's quite what they need right now in terms of the development. But Green was interested, but again, he's still... I was going to say he's a non-factor, but I think he scored 10 or 11 this season, which I think is the best in Europe for a teenager, in all competitions. So, things are looking up for him. And this is why I like the fact that United gave him some time, Solskjaer, because there's 2 or 3 occasions. I can give you a couple of examples. You probably all know them. When they could have sat... There was a week... early December when they were playing Mourinho Spurs on a Wednesday, I think, and then City on the Saturday. Yeah, did both games, and going into the Spurs game, which is the first of those, you're thinking he's in trouble here. I think they just lost to Burnley or something. I can't remember what it was. He's not going to win these 2. He needs to win these 2 basically. He's not going to win these 2. And he starts with Greenwood, I think it was at centre forward, and they beat him, and they beat him well, and they go to City and beat them, and since then, okay, they had another hiccup, but that. United are getting sort of reaping the reward for giving him some real time, and someone like Greenwood has really come on, and that's why I think I'm not a United fan, as I keep on repeating, because I have to, because everyone thinks of me United to see. But if I was a United fan, I'd be really excited. I'm excited watching them because I think there could be something happening here. So let's see what happens in the transfer market. I think they may well go for Sancho, and there's the lad Jude Bellingham as well, who his parents, not his Bellingham himself, but certainly his parents. I remember doing a story. His parents have been to the training ground. But he's a 16-year-old. But, if they come out the next window, whenever it is, with just Sancho, you'd have to say that's a success. But I just think now is the time. If I was Solskjaer, I'd say, look, this is, I need a 20, 25 goal in the league, man.
And just to finish off on Manchester United, with your gut instinct, if the season restarts, where do you think they'll finish, and what do you think they'll come out with in terms of trophies? Because they're still in the FA Cup,
Yeah.
they're still in the Europa League.
Well, they're going to have Rashford back, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Fit, because he's recovered. They're going to have Pogba back. They've not had those two players. When Rashford was injured, was it? When was it? Was it December?
January,
right?
January, I think.
Okay, so they missed him for about a couple of months, and I don't know. I can see them getting fourth. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Leicester are 8 points ahead, I think, are they?
Yeah.
That's not. I think I think they've got a great chance of finishing fourth. It's Champions League automatically, whether or not City overturn this ban.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, they're obviously through to the next round of the Europa League because they're not going to get be overturned 5-0 at home at their place. Yeah. Would you want to meet a United of De Gea, Wan-Bissaka, Maguire, Rashford, Fernandes, Pogba playing with Fernandes, thinking, wait a minute, it's not just about it's not just on my shoulders. Martial, that sounds like a half decent team that are on the up. I think a trophy and fourth is definitely within their grasp.
Well, Jamie, thank you for coming onto the channel. Is there anything else that is in the pipeline? You're talking about your novel. Obviously, the biography is coming out this year.
Yes, a kind question. So I've got another novel that my agent and I are just sort of in final editing stage before we send it off to prospective publishers. That's called Adventures in Love. It's set around the acid house scene of 1989 and 1990 when, I don't know, you're obviously very young, so I don't even know if you even know about that. But anyway, I'm quite excited about that. So that hopefully will be going out to publishers and hopefully getting a publisher and maybe published for next year. So that's kind of the biography and then the novel and then the others that I've been writing. So fingers crossed. But just to say to everyone, stay safe. Seriously, at the moment, it's not great. But thank you very much for asking me on, Sam. It's been great.
No, it's been good. Just to reiterate that, stay safe, everyone. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Remember to follow Jamie on Twitter. His link will be in the description below. Remember to check out his articles and his novels and book that will be coming out this year. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and see you.